This video is sponsored by Squarespace. So the drone that I've been exclusively using for the past 6 months is the DJI Air 3S. Since this drone released, I've reviewed a couple of others here on the channel, like the Neo and the Flip, although those drones are kind of in a completely different class than what the Air 3S offers. And I've also used other drones like the Mavic 3 Pro and the Inspire 3 on specific projects that called for those aircraft and those cameras that those drones carry. But the Air 3S has been the drone that I've used for most of my travels, most of my personal projects, and most of my client work if I have a say in the drone that I can fly, because after 6 months, this thing is still a beast. Now, there are a lot of reasons that this drone has become my favorite. Long flight time, fast top speed, the best and newest obstacle avoidance tech, a strong transmission system. I've really come to like using the RC2, but by far my favorite thing about this drone, the camera. Recently, I took a road trip up to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and it was actually a way for me to unplug and reset because of how remote the area was that I was visiting. But you know I had to pull the drone out for some photos and videos of the snowy landscape and snowmobile adventures that I went on. A specific spot I wanted to fly was to Quamanon Falls, as Michigan actually allows drone flights in state parks under certain parameters. I used the opportunity of having an empty park to take some still images of the falls as they froze over, and this specific angle here is something that I had a lot of fun playing with. The elevated angle makes for a perfect shot of my buddy Alex with the lower falls right behind him. That area that he was standing was also all ice. It was actually a couple of feet past where the railing was that you'd usually stand behind to view the falls during the spring or summer months. But because of all of the snow and all of the cold temperatures, there was a really thick layer of ice that you could walk out on and get even closer to the falls. And you know, of course, I had to replicate the same shot with a photo of myself. Now, I briefly want to bring you into my desktop to break down some of the images that I've taken with the Air 3S, beginning with this one right here that I just mentioned, me up on the snowbank. This is where I start to nerd out when I can finally get all of the files into Lightroom and start editing them. And the first thing I notice when I look at this photograph is how great the dynamic range is. You can see that this entire scene is pretty much backlit. The trees here don't have any sun hitting them. You can tell that the sun is hitting my back here as the main subject, and I have the shadow coming down towards the front of the image. So everything is backlit, yet the dynamic range really holds this image together. Now, of course, this is edited, but if we go and show the original, there still is a lot of detail there to play with. So dynamic range is great, but watch this. Remember, this is a 50 megapixel image, and if we go and zoom in on my face, you can see all of the detail here in my eyebrows, my eyes. You can see the facial hair, the blemishes on my face like freckles. You can see the snow on my hat. You can perfectly read CCM hockey. I sat here for just a couple of minutes and would just continue to zoom in and out on my face and really just marvel at the clarity of this camera. So clarity, dynamic range, everything is off the charts. And I was really happy with a lot of the photographs that I took here at Quamanon Falls. This was a very difficult scene to capture because of all of the difference in exposure and how bright some of the snow is, but I still walked away with what I believe are some great photos for what I was capturing. Now, moving on here, I have a couple of other photos I want to share with you, like some of these that I grabbed down in Long Beach Island. This is with the 3X camera. And I mean, just wow, there's so much great color in this image. If I show you the before, I mean, it looked okay, right? This is, of course, a very typical raw photograph, but when you can push and pull and really edit the image to bring out this, that is really where you mark what a good camera is, right? I've got some other great photographs here from Stream Song. I went down and played a little bit of golf. This is a great image here that actually turned into a panorama. So I was able to get 3 individual images of this entire middle section, and because I'm dealing with 50 megapixels, I was then able to give a nice panorama on my social media. So it kind of started here and then went across like this. And again, there's just so much detail and so much clarity here to play with that you could zoom in on this back building and still see like individual tables and golf carts. So that is really awesome. Now, I also mentioned some of the different clips or some of the different photos that I took in Utah of the flag. These turned out really great as well. Super happy with these. Let's see, another one that I pulled out here is kind of a throwback to some of the first images that I took with the Air 3S. These are of the Ferris wheel from Wonderland down in Ocean City, which unfortunately is being torn down. This is kind of like a neutral scene to me. Like, this would be really easy to photograph pretty much no matter which drone I was using. However, it was really great to be able to use the 3X camera with this drone because it kind of compressed this image here. So you have the whole Wonderland pier in the front and you have the Ferris wheel in the background. But if you look at the photo taken with the 1X camera, the Ferris wheel looks so much further back. So it's really cool to be able to compress the image, get some water down there in the scene, show off the pier, show off the boardwalk, and of course the big Ferris wheel in the background. So overall, 10 out of 10. This camera is a pleasure to shoot with, and I love editing the files. Now, moving on to the video side of things, when shooting with the Air 3s's camera, one of my favorite projects that I've worked on in the past couple of months was in collaboration with the Weber County Search and Rescue Team, who in Utah hung the world's largest free-hanging American flag between two mountains for Veterans Day. It really was one of the most epic sights that I've seen. If you didn't get a chance to see that full video, I would, if you could, go watch the whole thing, as the story behind why they hang this flag and how it's done is very impressive. This was a very drone-heavy project, as using the Air 3s was definitely the best way to capture the flag itself, as well as all of the people involved. For this specific project, because the sun was so low in the sky, hanging behind the mountains, one side of the canyon got no sun and posed a big challenge with the dynamic range of the camera, but I was really happy with all of the shots I walked away with. The colors are great, the clarity is great, and all of the other benefits of using the Air 3s made this video a joy to create. I've also used this drone for some vertical-oriented projects, and even though it doesn't have a camera and gimbal like the Mini 4 Pro that rotates vertically for a true portrait, photo, or video, it does give you a 2.7K crop right in the middle of the sensor, and actually gives you a little more room on the top and bottom because of the 4:3 image that it captures. So it cuts off the sides and gives you a higher resolution vertical output than you would if you just shot in 4K and in post cropped off the sides. Most of these clips I've made for my Instagram page of things happening here in Philly, like a big snowstorm that we got, as well as the devastating plane crash in Northeast Philadelphia. A Learjet had issues after takeoff and immediately crashed into the ground, causing an unimaginable amount of damage. It happened overnight, so I went out early in the morning just after, and during that golden hour, the colors and dynamic range held together really nicely. I've also been able to chase a lot of sunsets down the shore with this drone, and I found that sometimes, unless you have this crazy sunset that fills up the entire sky with light, it can look a little bit underwhelming when using the wide camera because it just captures too much of the landscape. But when you flip over to the medium tele lens, the 3x 70mm camera, it can make it look way better than it actually does. Just everything about these clips looks so good. The colors, the contrast, the clarity and detail, being able to slow it down, shooting 4K at 60 FPS. I was really happy I had my Air 3s here for these specific shots because it could handle the heavy wind coming off of the ocean. This is also the drone that I chose to take with me up to New Brunswick and Maine to chase after some fall colors at the end of 2024, and I shared a lot of those images in my my initial review video of this drone. I won't go crazy sharing all of these shots because, again, I have shared them already, but I did upload some of them as test files for you to download from my review video, so I'll repaste that link down below. If you want to click on them, check them out on your computer for yourself. I think you'll be really pleased with the images as you edit them, the clarity, contrast, the latitude that you have to push around the exposure and colors. Really, these files are a joy to edit, whether you're a photographer or a videographer. I seriously could gush about the Air 3s's camera for hours, and I could share even more photo and video examples from recent personal, travel, and client projects that I've worked on, but I think that you guys get the point. I think you understand the hardware is great. The image processing pipeline is top-notch. It's the newest and best software that DJI has put into their drones. You also probably know from working with the files off of this drone, whether it's from my test files that I provided, or maybe you owned this drone for yourself, that there's just so much flexibility to edit the images, whether they're photos or videos. The colors, the clarity, the image quality, the dynamic range, everything about this camera is just so great. Here's the thing though, the camera on a drone is only as good as the airframe that carries it, and in this case, the Air 3s is the best flying drone that DJI has made to date. It's better than the Mavic 3 Pro and Inspire 3, and I firmly stand behind that take. When I first got the Air 3s, I put it through a pretty heavy comparison against the Mavic 3 Pro, and for the better part of a full day, I was flying both drones back to back in similar scenarios, and I couldn't help but immediately notice that the Air 3s flew way better. Now on paper, the Air 3s is the better drone. It has a faster top speed. It can ascend and descend faster. It's got a better range with a better image transmission system amongst other things, but you can just actually feel it. Like when you're actually flying the drone, it's more responsive. It's a little bit more quick. It feels more smooth. And that's just because DJI has put their most up-to-date flight controller and flight software here on this drone. So the Air 3s, again, I fully stand behind it, is DJI's best flying drone, and that makes capturing video even easier. So again, I wanted to make this video all about the camera system of the Air 3S, but I couldn't do so without shouting out the actual drone itself because it truly is great. And if you want to learn more about the whole drone itself, you should probably check out my full review video. I'll leave that linked up in the top corner and down in the description. Now, I want to take a deeper dive into some of the different camera systems that DJI offers within their drones. But first, here's a quick word from this video sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is my all-in-one tool to share my content, acquire new business, and fully service the clients that I'm currently working with. With a recent overhaul, I've been able to showcase my best work the way that I want to on my website, giving future clients that want to hire me a clear understanding of the services I offer and the quality of work I deliver. Setting up my website was super easy as I was able to fully customize the experience quickly and efficiently with the new Fluid engine that makes building out your website a breeze. All of the elements that Squarespace offers gives me so many different options to feature the images and content on my web pages how I want. This also makes my website easy to maintain over time so I can spend less time updating my website and more time creating. On the back end, Squarespace is a powerful business management tool with flexible payment options to users that decide they want to sell goods through their website. In my case, this would be prints, presets, or anything else photography related. It also allows me to create invoices for the services that my clients can book directly on my website so I can keep track of my finances. It's also very helpful to keep an eye on the analytics that Squarespace delivers on the back end so I can see what web pages and what services are getting the most traction. So a big thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video and helping me display my work online for over half a decade. Now, for the second half of this video, I want to take a step back and look at camera systems on drones as a whole, from the Air 3S to the Inspire 3 to the Mini 4 Pro, all the different types of cameras we see on drones, because I feel like the technology is moving in a very interesting direction. So when the first DJI drones came out, they had one camera. The sensor on that one camera kept getting bigger. They improved the image quality, the color science, the frame rate, you guys get it. But come 2021, when the Mavic 3 released, DJI added a second camera to give the drone a longer focal length to zoom in further, up to 7 times optically. They then took it a step further with the Mavic 3 Pro that released 2 years later in 2023 by adding a lens right in the middle, so now you had a 1x, 3x, and 7x camera. Now, the Mavic 3 isn't technically the first drone that DJI has made that has multiple cameras and multiple sensors on it, as a lot of their enterprise drones have been doing this for years. Drones like the M350 have different payloads with cameras that can do all sorts of things, and their newest commercial drone, the Matrice 4T, has a camera that looks like it came right out of an alien ship. These multiple sensors, though, allow you to take regular wide-angle photos and videos, zoom really far in to capture details that are far away, and some of them even have thermal sensors to detect heat anomalies. The Mavic 3, though, really was the first drone that brought multiple sensors on one drone to the masses, as I think more people bought the Mavic 3 or Mavic 3 Pro than more people would purchase, say, one of their enterprise drones that cost way more money because of the technology built in and the applications that they're used for. The whole multiple camera system thing, though, really has been made popularized by smartphones. They've been doing it for years now. When space is limited, instead of trying to get zoom optically, these different cameras with different focal lengths make sense. What doesn't make sense to me, though, is that DJI was able to fit a camera that had an optical zoom in a much older drone, the Mavic 2 Zoom, which zoomed in from 24mm to 48mm. So it was effectively a 2 times optical zoom. This gave you the same quality photos and videos at all ranges of zoom because the actual camera hardware was zooming. Nothing was digital. The Mavic 3 Pro, on the other hand, has fixed focal lengths at 1x, 3x, and 7x. You can zoom in between those set focal lengths, but it will be digital. Therefore, it cuts down on the quality. For the sake of mentioning all of the different types of cameras on drones, I also want to bring the Inspire 3 into the mix, which uses the Zenmuse X9 8K Air that has a massive full-frame sensor and an interchangeable lens system that uses their DL mount lenses. I should probably also mention the camera system that was introduced on the Mini 3 Pro. It was then trickled down to the Mini 3 and of course made its way to the Mini 4 Pro, and that is the gimbal that can actually rotate the camera vertically to capture portrait photos and videos in their native resolution. Instead of cropping off the sides, it can actually rotate the camera fully, and this is exclusive again to those 3 drones, Mini 3 Pro, Mini 3, and Mini 4 Pro. To lay all that out for you, that means we have 4 different types of camera systems that we can find on any of DJI's drones. We have a single camera with a fixed focal length, so that's kind of like the old traditional format that we've had for years. We then have a vertical rotating camera, which is specific to just 3 of their mini drones. We've also got the multiple camera system, which is what the Air 3S falls into. That's the drone we've been talking about throughout this entire video. So this is where we have different cameras on one payload to give us different focal lengths, different zooms. In the case of the enterprise enterprise drones, we have thermal cameras as well. And then finally, we have the interchangeable lenses, which really is only specific to the Inspire series of drones. The Inspire 2 had it with the Zenmuse X5 and the X7, and then now the Inspire 3 has it with the Zenmuse X9 8K Air. And also on the enterprise side, the P1 had interchangeable lenses for high quality mapping. Some of you might not realize that the type of camera system a drone has is one of the biggest deciding factors when it comes to choosing which drone is right for you. So for example, when you look at those 4 categories, if you go with a drone that has a single fixed focal length camera, it's probably because you care about weight. The smaller drones like the Flip, the Neo, the Avata 2, even the mini series of drones has a fixed camera with a little bit of digital zoom, but it doesn't have the multiple cameras for optical zoom because they need to deal with weight and size. So if you prefer a small drone, you're gonna go with one that has a fixed camera. Now, if you care a little bit more about shooting social content, you might go with a Mini 3 Pro, Mini 3 or Mini 4 Pro, because those are the only 3 drones that have a camera that rotates to shoot true vertical photos and videos. I know a lot of people out there that have more expensive drones, higher end drones like a Mavic 3 Pro, but they then purchase a Mini 4 Pro specifically for taking vertical video for social media. So that is like the standout feature of those drones, is the fact that the camera can rotate, and it really is one of the biggest selling points for Mini 3 Pro, Mini 3, and Mini 4 Pro. Now, if you care a little bit more about the size of your drone, you want something a little bit larger, more professional, it can handle the wind better, and if you want something that has a better camera all around, you're probably gonna find something that has multiple cameras on it. I don't think that DJI sells a drone right now on their higher end tiers that actually comes with a camera with just one lens. I mean, the Mavic 3 Classic was offered for a little bit, but then they discontinued that. It just had the main 4/3 sensor of the Mavic 3 to save cost. But I think the Air 3S, the Air 3, the Mavic 3, Mavic 3 Pro, all the recent high-end drones that they sell have multiple cameras on them. And then from there, the next step up, kind of the next couple steps up, is the Inspire 3. It has the interchangeable lenses on it, and that's gonna give you the best image quality possible. Now, let's look back at the Mavic 2 zoom. That drone had the optical zoom from 24 millimeters to 48 millimeters. And I think that's the perfect future. I mean, let's think about it. You don't get the most range from your zoom, but you get the highest quality zoom. And also, you can snap to different focal lengths that are popular for shooting photos and videos. You can go 24, 35, you can go up to 50 millimeters without losing any quality at all. Whereas with the Mavic 3 Pro, even though I have these 3 cameras, I can only go to 24 millimeters or 77 or 70 millimeters or 166 millimeters. You have those 3 defined focal lengths, and anything in between those is going to be a digital crop or a digital zoom. Not to mention, when you switch between those different cameras, you then have to deal with different color sciences when editing your photos and videos, which can be kind of a pain in post. Having the Inspire 3 with the interchangeable lenses is great. You of course have top-notch image quality, but think about how annoying it is when you want to switch lenses. You have to come down, land the drone, swap out the lens that you want to for, whatever focal length you want to use. You of course have to turn the drone off so you don't damage the gimbal motors. You then need to turn it back on, go up into the air, and it's just such a pain to switch between those focal lengths. And that's why having all 3 cameras on a drone is great, because you can tap on your remote while in the air and get the different zoom levels. So man, I'm all over the place. Like, all of these different camera systems have pros and cons. One camera is going to give you a smaller, lightweight drone. A vertical shooting camera is going to be nice, but you likely can't have a heavy camera because of how delicate that gimbal system is. So you are kind of just left with one single focal length. And then moving on from there, the multiple camera system is great, very flexible, on the fly, can switch between the different focal lengths, but you're limited to just those 3 focal lengths, and you can't go in between them without having a digital crop. And then of course, the interchangeable lenses is kind of like the holy grail. It's going to give you the best image quality possible. But man, being somebody that has to switch focal lengths on the fly all the time, it's annoying having to land, switch lenses, and put the drone back in the air. So to me, I think that my perfect camera system, my best case scenario, is a drone that has optical zoom from 1x to 3x. I just want to be able to zoom from 24 millimeters all the way up to 70 millimeters and anywhere in between with full quality. Give me a little bit of digital zoom on the back end if I want to zoom in to see something a little bit further away. That will kind of give the people that want the further zoom their thing that they can do. But for me, give me an optical zoom, and that's going to be the best case scenario, because I can then zoom in on the fly, and I can also deal with the color science of just one camera. That's my take, guys. I'd love to know what you think about the Air 3S's camera, because that was the first part of the video, but also let me know what your dream camera setup is on a drone. Think about the 4 different options I gave you. What would you want? Please let me know in the comments. And as always, I'll talk to you later. Peace.